Let's meet our final speaker for the day, Pascale Mapleston. She's the CEO of the Benefit Code, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about compensation and benefit strategies for skilled labor retention. And Pascal, I was hoping that you could provide us with a brief overview of how benefits packages and components impact the attraction and retention of employees. And then once you've done a little bit of a preamble and introduce some topics, I'm thinking that we can have a little Q&A session, dive into some of the subtopics and details. So with that, I'll pass the microphone and the podium over to you, and then I'll join you in a few minutes.
Thank you, Adam. It would be my pleasure. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen here. We're going to go through a couple of prepped slides. Don't worry, not more than 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll jump into some questions. So really, as we've heard from all of our panelists who did such an amazing job talking about treating, our employees as, whole people, we're seeing the construction world changing so quickly. We're seeing and wanting a more diverse, multi-generational workforce. And as we've heard today, there are some serious gaps to fill. Retention, harder than ever. And let's be honest, many traditional benefit plans were built decades ago for a very different workforce. If we want to attract and keep our top talent today, we need to rethink the foundation. Benefits aren't just perks, they're tools to compete and, as important, to retain. So let's talk talent pool quickly. We've heard a lot about, women in the construction industry today already, and women right now are making up just 5% of on-site workers. By province, we have seen upwards of 77,000 women in construction, but only a quarter of those are actually in hands-on roles, and there's a massive untapped potential here. But if we want more women on the job site, we have to meet them where they are. That means benefits like paid parental leave, childcare support, flexible schedules, and let's be blunt, safe and clean washrooms also help a lot. These aren't nice to haves, they're basic tools to unlock a more inclusive, skilled labor force. To retain talent, especially women, we need to offer practical, personalized benefits. Think on-site childcare subsidies, caregiver-friendly flexibility, and it's about really building a culture of where people see long-term potential, not just a job. Younger workers, where we heard today it's pretty competitive. So what are they looking for? Well, we know they're not just looking for a paycheck. They want personalized benefits, they want mental health support, career development, and work with purpose. You want to attract them? Start with benefits that reflect them. So benefits that reflect them don't look like your granddad's benefit plan. And let's be honest, they don't even look like our mom's benefit plan. Today, top employers offer health spending and wellness accounts, mental health apps, mental health supports, tuition support, and even student loan repayment. These tools speak directly to the barriers skilled workers face and help them choose you over the competition down the street. Let's not forget our seasoned pros. They're invaluable, but they're also facing chronic health conditions, fatigue, and family responsibilities. So what helps? Well, on-site health screening, mobile clinics, fitness and diet education, flexible schedules to reduce burnout, and tailored benefits really do equal longer, healthier careers. We know that some people want to continue working and some people have to continue working. So let's really help them create that longevity. Want to future-proof your workforce? Well, tailor your benefits to reflect your people. This really isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's really a modular, responsive, inclusive direction. And yes, worth every penny when you're looking at the cost of turnover and empty job sites. So what do we do? Simple. Rethink your benefit strategy, invest in inclusive, flexible programs, and build loyalty before you build the next project. Solving skilled labor shortages means changing how we take care of people. It's time to build a stronger benefits foundation. And let's really dig into some of the questions so that we can tailor your programs to meet your needs.
Excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate the quick overview there, and it really ties in. Like I like the progression of today, where the last session there was the talk about it is all about the employee. So it's kind of a good switch there. So looking at some of the points you raise, I think one of the big things is it used to be a one size fits all approach kind of thing, and it does simplify things for employers. But why isn't it really the right approach or a good approach when it comes to benefits plans in industries like construction, where there is a lot of competition to attract and retain workers?
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and I think that that answer is really reflective in all the answers we heard earlier today. Our workforce, the construction workforce, is changing. We're looking to build a diverse, multi-generational workforce, and those traditional benefit plans, they don't work for traditional spaces anymore, and they certainly don't work for spaces that are looking to evolve. When we're looking at traditional plans, like one of the panelists said in the last session, people were staying at their jobs for 20, 30 years. So you were looking at a large amount of insurance based take care of you for the rest of your life benefits. And now benefit plans are really reflective of how are we going to help evolve folks who want to evolve by giving them what they need when they need it in the moment. So a lot like developing their career path, we're going to help them develop their health path depending on where they're at in their life. If they're younger and they need help, supporting their family, that's what we need to be able to do. If they're older and they have to support their health from chronic, health conditions, then that's what we need to do as well. It doesn't mean spending more money. It just means being much more flexible with the approach. And I think it's really a positive change in the benefit industry. There are so many opportunities now to get really flexible without changing your budget, because it's not just this industry that wants more flexibility for the younger worker, it's across Canada. So there are so many options really that we can look at for the same price to really start getting inclusive.
Nice. I think the problem solvers and whatnot are not just in the construction industry. Sounds like we've got some in the benefits side too, right? So talk to us a little bit about how the needs differ amongst employee groups, like especially those who are in underrepresented groups in the construction field. So, women, of course, Indigenous peoples, New Canadians. These are all groups where they they are underrepresented in the labor force. What are some of the things that can be worked into a benefits plan so that everyone feels like their particular needs are included? Are there components that would appeal to females in the industry, multicultural differences that exist, family status, all of that? The world, like the it's a big platter. I'll let you go.
That's a big question. And you know what? I actually think it's a fairly simple answer. And I I think Jay started the conversation really well when he said, listen to your people. I mean, on the last panel, we heard about really paying attention to your own demographic and to your own workplace culture and trying to develop that as best you can. And so for me to say, this is what, all women want, this is what, all Indigenous folks like, it really depends on your location. It depends on, how old your folks like flexible benefits can come in many different versions. Would say the easiest way to get flexible benefits out there are to create an opportunity for people to choose. So once an employer figures out their top needs for, through surveys or, getting to know their people best and listening to them, creating a package that reflects their makeup, but then adding in a large amount of flexible dollars that they can choose what they need to, whether that's childcare support, whether it's elder care support, whether it's looking at transportation costs, or an ability to make sure that your helmet is appropriate. We heard that before. Well, making sure that people can choose their own um, tools, etc. Not all tools, but helmets, boots, etc. It really makes a lot of sense. And trusting that your people know what's going to work for them best.
Excellent. And you mentioned about surveys and things like that. Any advice as to how to get that feedback from your own people? I know the ad hoc conversations are great, but sometimes the one-on-one doesn't reflect the larger trend, right?
What I like about the direction that surveys are going now is that before you do a survey and you get this huge binder of information that would be really hard to roll out and execute on. I think there are some great companies out there like Spark Engagement and some other niche players that are really delivering powerful information in a very easy to execute way. And what I really like about, organizations like Spark is that not only do they give you information about execution, you can do it by division. So, one particular division might have different needs than another. So I really like that. I really like that approach, and I think that there's some really amazing new options for surveys. We don't have to do the big, thick, I don't know what to do with this information approach anymore. You can do a survey for a very reasonable amount of money and execute it within 30 days.
And I guess a lot of companies have either a newsletter or something like that internally that there's ways to communicate. Yeah.
Well, there's ways to communicate. I think, once you pull in the information, it's really good to obviously say, I've heard you, and here's, how we're going to execute it. But again, if you move to a more flexible spend approach, in addition to, how you're going to take care of your people, you can address that very easily with one spend. Take money from maybe something that's expired in terms of modern offerings and turn it into something that's going to please everybody with the ability to choose, especially the younger generation. Well, nobody likes to be told what to do or what we want, but in particular with the younger generation that we're all competing for, they want to make their own decisions on where they're going to focus their dollars and their energy.
Awesome. Speaking of different stages of one's career, what are some of the differences, I guess, in the wants and needs of a benefits plan based on where somebody is? Like if somebody's in their 20s versus somebody who's mid-career or somebody who's nearing retirement, what are the different strings that you're seeing that kind of resonate based on which cohort somebody happens to be in?
Well, financial wellness is important throughout those pieces. Obviously, we need to start talking to our folks about retirement and making sure that we're retirement ready. I think that wellness piece and offerings, financial wellness is something that we've really put to the side in a lot of organizations. Most organizations have a benefit plan. 20% of organizations have a retirement plan. And now as we see, a huge amount of boomers who want to retire but can't, we see how important it is to make sure that we're, slipping that in at the beginning through, flexible programs. But what I'm seeing, particularly in the construction industry, is making sure that we are providing um, health resources for people where they're at, especially for the mid to older generation, especially if they've been working in construction their whole life. The chronic pain, um, painkiller, like we need to get more mobile. We need to meet people on site. We need to help them with screenings. We need to catch things early so that we can help support them before they're sick, on first sighting. So I'm seeing very progressive companies that are really amping up their on-site offerings in terms of health. And that would be, way more important, I think, because especially based on the demographic of the traditional construction worker, that's a very reactive, like, I haven't been feeling well for like 4 months. Maybe I should, our spouses are like, go to the doctor. Um, if we can get there in a proactive approach, we're going to keep our workers for much longer in a much healthier state.
Speaking as a male, we don't tend to go to doctors very often unless we're forced to. So
I
I hear
didn't
you.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to say it specifically, but yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, Adam.
Yep. Actually, we had a an employer that I knew. He did annual flu clinics where he would bring the truck in every year, voluntary to his staff, but made it easy for it to happen. So things like that, it's impressive what can be done.
Well, like not just to go back to that point, when you're looking at your claim spend and you're seeing, you've got quite a few workers, on hypertension or, diabetic medication, you're actually missing all the at-risk workers. So if there are trends in that department, you're even wanting to bring in, diabetic screenings or, other important, because that is really key to our specific industry piece is that hypertension, pre-diabetes, lifestyle. Those are things that we can easily tackle with, on-site programs that won't break the budget.
Excellent. What are some other benefit plan components that tend to rank highly amongst workers? What are kind of the items that you're seeing as requests either for information or inclusion?
Critical illness is becoming more important in the industry than life insurance. So we're seeing a big shift there because of our, improving healthcare system. People are actually getting better. So, being able to support them in that. But workers don't often say, you know what, I need critical illness. What everybody wants across the board is not just an ability to buy things when they want. It's that flexible dollar. For new workers, they want help paying off their loans. They want to be able to come into an organization and not worry about their debt. So that's a huge piece for the young worker. And I would, seriously consider that even for the mid-sized organizations. Very large organizations have, and we heard from some amazing HR folks earlier, they have some, depth in terms of what we should offer. But the mid-size, if you want to consider changing and recruiting young talent, think about helping with that loan repayment and then developing careers. And you can go outside your organization and bring somebody in to help with that.
For sure. Excellent. And with this being a construction focused discussion, are there any sector specific plan inclusions that resonate within this sector? Because I know financial stability for sure. Anybody that's got either a student loan or things like that, I think some of the EAP programs do offer financial management assistance and things like that. So that's kind of broad based. But I know with construction, I'll throw it out there like musculoskeletal injury is a big issue. I've known a lot of tradespeople on the tools and it's repetitive strains and picking things up. So are there things that might kind of align with what they're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think bringing in more ergonomic experts, early on is, something that's really important before we're seeing, the middle-aged folks with the repetitive injuries. We're seeing, a lot more proactive management in terms of, how are we going to protect our workers long term because of what we've seen with, our aging workforce. I really think being proactive in terms of taking care of what your particular organization is claiming and being proactive with programs. And that is a lot more wellness early programs. So it's not, somebody's on disability, how are we going to bring them back to work? It's, 15% of my workforce are taking antidepressants. How are we going to talk about, mental health in a workplace that traditionally doesn't talk about it? How are we going to make it, more normal to talk about mental health with, you know, uh, men who traditionally don't talk about that, or how are we going to be more inclusive with our diverse workforce and make sure that everybody is feeling safe and protected. So I think starting to really dig into what's happening within your workforce and not just doing surveys, not just listening to your workers, but analyzing the data, the health data that you have access to through your benefits program. There's so many options that you can do, including just plain good communications, like, this is what we're seeing, how can we help you, and then listening to what we need. And it's personalized, right? So through the EAPs now, Adam, like, if you give them a problem, they'll personalize a response for you. So we just need to identify what the issues are.
Excellent. And just because we brought it up earlier about personal protective equipment, so PPE and that sort of thing, how easy is it to work in something where, I know I wear glasses, so of course I've got prescription safety glasses. Those are an extra that you don't want to see my bill from the optometrist. So how easy is it to work some of those things in? Because, again, we're on job sites where hearing protection and hearing loss over time can happen. So as you get older, you start looking at hearing aids and things like that. How easy is it to work stuff like that into a benefits package now?
Yeah, it's so easy now. Like, there's so many partners but before, if you worked it into your program, somebody had to walk in with a receipt to your HR department. Now you can just build it in as a value add. You just really need to pick the amount. You can allocate it as, specifically to, protective eyewear, or you could, allocate it for a more general fund, and people can pick and choose what they need. And then, having that administered is exceptionally easy now. So it's really just picking a budget and then rolling it out.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the discussion here. We're starting to get towards time here. I don't know if there's any other points that you'd care to comment about.
The only thing that, I would reiterate is what we heard from the other panelists is, now is the time to really meet people where they're at. And, in a very traditional space called benefits before, it was just really plug and play 30 years ago. There's really no reason not to take your existing budget and, make it a real tool for your business to attract and retain. And you can get really flexible and creative without breaking the budget, and that really will make your folks feel more seen and heard as individuals, versus as, part of an employee group.
Yeah. I love that idea of customization. It's really where the world's gone, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you for this. I appreciate the time you spent with us and sharing your knowledge. Pascal's actually got an article on site as well, so I'll give ourselves a plug. Check that if you want. But thank you very much for joining us today.